important is it that we have a probiotic, prebiotic, and what's the difference between the pro and the pre?
So probiotics are going to be the bacteria that you supplement in your gut. So when we hear about the gut microbiome, we typically are talking about the probiotics. Prebiotics feed the probiotics. So it's like the food that you're giving to those critters in your gut so they can thrive. There's actually postbiotics too, and that's what the probiotics create that are very healthy compounds that actually help us to improve our health as well. So there's pre, pro, and postbiotics. So typically, I do recommend that most people supplement with probiotics. I find that there's a lot of benefit.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. It's a very popular topic right now. I've heard so many people talk about it, and sometimes you don't know what's right and what's wrong. What am I talking about? I'm talking about gut health. Isn't it funny how in the course of our lives, there always seems to be the diagnosis du jour, the thing that everybody's talking about these days. And gut health is one of those things. So I am really excited to introduce to you my guest because she's going to get us straight on what's real and what's not when it comes to the whole issue of gut health. I have with me today, Daina Rasutis. I'm going to a nutrition therapist master, which means we're going to definitely get the right information. So first of all, Dinah, how did you come to be so passionate when it comes to the whole idea of nutrition? What made you decide to pursue this path?
Yes, like so many people, it was my own health journey that brought me to nutrition. So I'm actually from a civil engineering background. So I was in graduate school, got my civil engineering degree, had no interest in becoming a civil engineer, and actually ended up in the restaurant industry because I knew I was attracted to food. So I wanted to be around food. And it wasn't until I was in the restaurant industry, seeing food prepared, that I started thinking about what is the health of food and what do we have to think about when we consume the food that we're eating. And I myself was struggling with a couple of health issues. So even though I was in my 20s, I was tired, I had digestive issues, and I had really bad adult acne. And I tried everything. And I felt like I was holistic and I thought I was eating the right things and taking care of myself, but I couldn't get these health issues to go away. I'm seeing doctors. They were just giving me pills and nothing was helping. So then I started experimenting with my diet and that seemed to shift things around, but it wasn't enough. And then I realized I wanted to go back to school for this and I didn't want to do anything in engineering. I wanted to be around food and I wanted to help other people and myself figure out what to eat for our bodies. So I wasn't really interested in the dietetics route. I didn't really want to do a conventional approach to nutrition. I'm much more holistically focused and I found nutrition therapy. And so that's very much a holistic approach to nutrition, talking about mind, body, spirit, talking about a very integrative approach to nutrition. And just eating real foods is a big part of it. So I went back to school and figured out my skin issues, figured out my gut issues, and now I help other women do the same.
And that's why you're my girl, because I love it when people take the mind, body, spirit approach, because it really is about figuring out our relationship with food, why we're eating, what else is going on with us spiritually, why are we attracted to that donut when you're really like peeling back the layers. But when it comes to gut health, there's a couple of things that you really need to get taken care of right away to figure out what to do next. And that is functional testing. What is functional testing and why is it so important?
Yes. So we can do a lot with food alone and lifestyle changes and dealing with stress and improving sleep. But a lot of people, they do all those things. They're living the right way. They're following the rules, but they're still not feeling well. So that's where functional testing can come into play. So it's really showing us what's going on the inside that you just wouldn't be able to tell because so many, especially gut issues, a lot of the symptomology looks very similar, whether you might have like a yeast overgrowth or a parasite or bacterial imbalance. A lot of those symptoms can overlap, whether that's gas or something like acne or joint pain or whatever it might be. You can't really tell. So that's where I really lean on functional testing. So we're testing, not guessing. And we're using the right diet. We're using the right supplements because every single gut imbalance will require a slightly different supplement protocol. So functional testing is a great tool for that. I lead a lot on stool testing. So literally it's a stool sample that you send it to a lab and they see what's going on in your body, what's happening in your large intestine, in your colon. And from that, we can develop a protocol It's very much bio-individualized to you specifically. So that's my favorite type of functional testing.
Okay. And then when it comes to these whole supplements and things that everybody's talking about, how important is it that we have a probiotic, prebiotic? And what's the difference between the pro and the pre?
Yes, great question. So probiotics are going to be the bacteria that you supplement in your gut. So when we hear about the gut microbiome, we typically are talking about the probiotics. Prebiotics feed the probiotics. So it's like the food that you're giving to those critters in your gut so they can thrive. There's actually postbiotics too. And that's what the probiotics create that are very healthy compounds that actually help us to improve our health as well. So there's pre, pro, and postbiotics. So typically, I do recommend that most people supplement with probiotics. I find that there's a lot of benefit. There's tons of evidence to show that it's really beneficial for all sorts of conditions. Probiotics foods are also something I definitely encourage. It's just really hard to get those therapeutic amounts from foods alone. You would have to eat crazy amounts of sauerkraut and kimchi and kefir and all those high probiotic foods. So probiotic is just a good insurance policy, a high quality probiotic, take it daily, really good for supporting gut health. That's what I recommend.
When we talk about high quality, I've seen someone with 20 billion, 64 billion. What are those numbers and what does it mean?
So those are colony forming units, CSUs, and it's really the number of microbes that are in there. It really depends. It's not necessarily more is better. You have to look at the research and understand what levels are encouraged. And what I recommend with quality probiotics is things that are tested, because what happens is we have all this research. One strain is good for, let's say, migraine, but another strain is good for constipation. And what a lot of these companies do is that they throw all these strains together without actually testing what the concoction does. So really in the end, we don't know how those probiotics are functioning as a unit. So we really want to buy from companies who have done the full testing and understand how that final product reacts and how
that's a good point. How do you know they've done the full testing? Now, some companies advertise that they do, but how do you know for sure that you've done the full testing?
You can check with the supplement company or just make sure you buy from a reputable brand. Mm-hmm. So the brands I use, they're very much functional medicine brands. Mm-hmm. So they're practitioner grade. So it's not something you find at a Costco or a Walgreens or anything like that. Like if you're buying supplements, it's really like you're going to have to pay slightly more, but you're paying for quality. Don't waste your money on things that aren't going to do anything. At that point, just pay a premium and use something that's been tested.
Yeah, I always advise my clients to, generally speaking, you don't want to go to a container store and get a big old thing of fish oil because first of all, you know how long it's been sitting there, how long it took to get to the bottle and then to the big container store and how long it sat there. It's just not a good idea. I always like to go to some reputable health food stores and lots of times they have people there who have some information that could be helpful to help you make a decision. But of course, the main thing is to have a really good health coach or nutritionist or someone that can advise you or recommend the brand that they advise to their patients. Okay, so we got that going. Now, we are talking to midlife women because, the V.I.B.E podcast is all about midlife women, whatever that is. Now, I don't think I'm midlife because that would mean I would have to live to be 134. So, but I'm throwing myself in that hat anyway. But women who are aging gracefully, why is gut health important in terms of hormonal balance? Because that's something that women are talking about even after menopause, which, word to the wise, really never ends. So why is hormonal balance so important when it comes to gut health?
Well, definitely it starts before you hit menopause, before perimenopause, really with the estrogen balance. The gut microbiome is so critical for estrogen balance. And this is really actually important also in perimenopause when your estrogen is going up and down and you're starting to get all those symptoms. So it's twofold. First of all, it's really important that your gut microbiome is healthy because your liver has to inactivate estrogen. And for that, you need really good vitamins and minerals. So you need things like folate and B6 and B12 and selenium and magnesium and all these things. So basically you need to be eating a nutrient-dense diet to make sure your gut microbiome support it. So nutrient-dense diet. But the little thing here is you need to make sure that you're actually breaking down and absorbing those foods. So you could be eating the most beautiful diet, but if your gut health is off, like you get gassy, maybe your bowel movements are a little bit not great. That just shows that maybe you're not digesting your food all the way. So again, you're eating this expensive, beautiful, organic food, but maybe you're not digesting it. So that's a really important factor to consider. Another important factor just for general health, microbiome health, estrogen clearing is toxicity. So things like alcohol, endocrine disrupting chemicals, these things really disrupt the way your hormones can be shuffled around in the body. So you just have to be careful. Don't drink excessive alcohol. Being cautious with things like BPA, so plastic types, pesticides, flame retardants, anything like that. So just letting your detox capacity work fully, because that's going to help your hormone clearance as well and hormone balance. And then lastly,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then lastly, the gut microbiome is really important for detoxification. So things like estrogen, especially when you're before perimenopause, a lot of those symptoms that women get, whether it's PMS or cramping or anything like that, that's typically because estrogen's a little too high. So we really need to make sure that we're metabolizing estrogen properly. And for that, you don't want the microbiome producing these enzymes that basically stop that detoxification. So all of that is an important foundation as you merge into the years of perimenopause and menopause, when your estrogen starts to roller coaster up and down, and then towards menopause, when your hormones just really decrease and you become, you could say more similar to a male compared to hormones naturally, just because those hormones really go down in your older years. And in that point, it's really important that your gut is healthy, because for so many reasons for menopause related health issues. For example, same thing with breaking down your food. As we age, our hydrochloric acid production, so the stomach acid that breaks down your food, it goes down. So you really need to make sure that you're supporting your gut microbiome so that you can digest your food, because you need that for hormone production, for strong bones, for brain health, for all the things that you really want to focus on when you're aging. So your microbiome is kind of core to all of that, to make sure that it's functioning right and breaking down your food and you're absorbing all those nutrients. So that's a really big thing.
So now what can we do? What would you say would be the basics that we need to be looking out for when it comes to caring for our gut, so we can at least begin to start moving towards really good gut health?
Mm-hmm. First of all, making sure that your gut health is strong by watching for any digestive symptoms. So that's the obvious thing. If you're feeling like you're getting gassy, bloated, if you have acid reflux, anything like that, it's something of a red flag. So you want to look into that. Things we can do that are really simple is just make sure that you're digesting your food by sitting in a rested state and chewing your food. It sounds so simple and so silly, but we're on the go, we're eating while we're watching Netflix, we're scrolling our phone, and that puts your whole body into the state of not rest and digest. It's in stress mode and it's not thinking about digesting your food. The most simple thing you could do is just really slow down and make sure you chew your food and eat in a rested state. That's going to improve your digestion. And that alone, for some people, gets rid of their bloating. So that's an amazing thing to start with. You really want a variety of foods to feed the microbiome. So a lot of us get into the same ruts of buying the same grocery list of foods. We're kind of in our routine. We make the same dishes, but your gut microbiome loves diversity. One test to do is see how many plants you eat in a week. And I love clients to get to at least 30. So you can do a little bit of an experiment and write down anytime you eat something from a plant, whether that's almonds or a spice like oregano or brown rice or whatever it might be, and try to see if you can hit 30 things in a week. And that's really good for the gut microbiome. So those are some simple things to start with, just to get a little bit more of that support for the gut.
I love that. You just gave me my next TikTok idea, and that is rest and digest. Because you're right. When we're eating, I'm guilty of this. I'm always reading something. I'm working on my to-do list. I might be watching television. I'm definitely listening to something. I'm always doing something. That's how I'm able to do these 28 people we were talking about earlier. I'm always doing something while I'm eating. But I bet you I probably am not chewing it all the way. And now I'm certified in gut health. And I know I've heard that before, but that's why I love what I do, because you all keep me honest and remind me of all these things that I should know. And you're absolutely right. Taking the time to fully digest our food, you'd be surprised what an impact that makes on your bloating, ladies. You always talk about the belly bloat, on your bloating, but also on that little leftover residual of gut health. What would you say would be the worst thing that you could eat that would automatically put your gut into, like, everybody's having a party down there but you? What to do?
And with that, I mean, ultra processed foods. If we could just stop eating ultra processed foods, that would make such a difference in people's health. I mean, they're full of sugar. They're full of refined grains. They're full of oils that are rancid and poor quality. I mean, there's no nutritional value to that. So that's the one thing that I would really recommend people stop eating, especially for the additives, all those emulsifiers that are in there. They literally disrupt your gut lining because it's emulsifying the mucus layer that's supposed to protect your gut lining. So the number one thing, if we could get rid of ultra processed foods, that would be a major, major benefit for people.
Now, you mentioned something that was very interesting. You mentioned brown rice. And I want to talk a little bit about rice and wheat products and everything else, because we know that, first of all, gluten is our enemy, everybody. Gluten is our enemy, and it is just about in everything that's processed. Is definitely anything that comes in a bag that tastes like bread, okay? It's definitely gluten, okay? Bad, bad, bad. But what about the other wheats that are out there and how it impacts our gut health? What's your opinion on that? What have studies shown?
So I agree. Gluten is best to be avoided for most people. Most people have some kind of non-celiac gluten sensitivity in the sense of they get some kind of symptoms or their test results might come back with some kind of antibodies being elevated. So when I work with gut health clients, it's kind of a given. No gluten, definitely for the 3 months we work together. We'll talk about it after. If you might want to bring something in like sourdough, if it's organic, maybe. But really, gluten is really, really something that most people should avoid. Other gluten containing grains. So wheat is the most common one that we see. So wheat is going to be what we think of gluten. There are other grains that contain wheat, like barley contains gluten, not wheat, sorry, gluten. So barley, spelt, there's a couple other ones, but those are kind of some common ones. So overall, all of those should be grouped into one of just avoid anything that is a gluten containing grain. So there are many non-gluten grains, so grains that don't have gluten. So that would be, for example, rice, brown rice, quinoa, buckwheat, which is confusing, but it's actually gluten-free. So other grains like that. And it depends on the person. I would say for older women, typically, once you're in perimenopause, menopause, grain can become a little more inflammatory, especially. And
Right.
when you're just in a place of your life where you really want to start reducing carbohydrates, because they're not as necessary, because you're not menstruating anymore. You don't need that carbohydrate to support your cycle anymore. It's really best to avoid or really limit grains. So whether they're gluten-free, I would say overall, really minimize grain consumption in menopause.
I kind of agree with you, because just yesterday I made some lentils and I made some brown rice for my husband. I put just a little bit of brown rice in there so I can get that complete protein, just a little bit. And I'm not feeling all that great about that right now today.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, and of course, my digestive process have changed. People, this is the reality about the aging process. They call it the aging process because things that you normally would produce and do when you were younger begin to go away. And there are things that you can do to supplement it and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is lifestyle change, at some point, you've got to make some decisions on what are you going to stop doing so that you're not feeling as uncomfortable. And no, I'd rather feel comfortable than really have a big old pity party about not eating sugar anymore. That white sugar, I thought you were going to say white sugar was the enemy of gut health, because I know that the parasites, they just,
Oh yeah.
they just go crazy. And it's interesting because many times we don't really realize the yeast that we have in our systems because it's not necessarily presenting in such a way, but other things can happen to the body and the chemistry changes, and all of a sudden you realize, and this happens especially to women over 60, you have a yeast infection. And you're like, what the heck? I haven't had that since 25, 30, when we were all, having a great time in college and being single gals, right? Well, actually, as we get older, the propensity of that to happen comes forth in a different way for a different reason, because it's just sitting there. So what can we do to kind of cut down that yeast a little bit to help us with our gut health?
So probiotics are a great option, because really, if you're getting yeast infections, that could very likely be related to just not having the great microbial diversity and strength from your gut. So definitely a red flag if you're getting especially recurrent yeast infections, to look at the gut health. And probiotics, whether that's like we talked about, taking a probiotic, eating lots of probiotic foods, and staying away from sugar and alcohol, because sugar and alcohol will feed yeast. So if you're finding that you're getting a lot of yeast symptoms, and that could be yeast infections, it could be like a white tongue, could be sugar cravings. There's a lot of symptoms of just like yeast in the body. So just really cutting down on sugar, refined grains, and alcohol.
All the things we love, but that's okay. You can still have fun. I mean, I can't do any of that stuff anymore. So I have to count on my own little stuff going on in my mind to have fun. I find joy in other ways. So,
Totally.
yeah, that's, it's really great talking to you, Dinah. I could talk to you for a long time. In fact, I want to ask if you could come back, and I want to talk some more, but I want to make sure that people understand how to get in touch with you. On the show page is the social media links for Dinah, and also her Table to Crave. I love that. The Table to Crave website. Check that out. But I understand you do things virtually as well. Is that correct?
Yep, I practice 100% virtually. So I work with clients all around the world. And like you mentioned, my business is called Table to Crave. I have some freebies on my website if you're interested. There's a great one about just recipes to support your gut health. So if you're interested to get some
That's what I wanted maybe guys to talk about. Okay, well, the other thing is like, okay, you've taken everything away. Now what can I eat? But you'd be surprised. You can eat a lot of things that are healthy and you will not starve. And you will not go broke. That's the other thing. It's like, well, if I eat organic, I won't have any money to do, all the other things. But no, you can do all the things and still be healthy too. Dinah, thank you so much for being on the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. It's really been great having you here today.
Yeah, thanks, Blue. Thank you for having me. It was awesome talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Such an important topic, everybody. Go to her website, get the freebie, and call her for a consult to find out. If you're having problems with gut health and you haven't been able to find the right answer from your normal practitioner or whoever else you might be working with, try talking with Dinah, because she has some excellent ideas and she's a nutrition therapist master, which most of our doctors are not. Most of them are traditionally trained doctors. They take maybe one class on nutrition. And that's all I'm going to say about that, but that's the truth. So anyway, check her out. And thank you so much for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. I know there's lots of other podcasts out there you could be listening to. So I really appreciate it. And I would really love it if you would please like, share, and subscribe and comment on this podcast. And don't forget to take a listen to the other podcasts. We've had some great experts on this season. I'm really proud of the podcast that we've had today. And thank you so much for making us in the top 10% of Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day, everybody. And don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.